Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old Canadian college student attending the University of British Columbia in Vancouver when she passed away under very mysterious circumstances. The Hong Kong native was staying in Los Angeles in January of 2013 at the infamous Cecil Hotel when she vanished. She failed to call her parents, which was a strict part of her daily routine, and they eventually contacted LAPD. A search and investigation pulled up security footage of Elisa behaving strangely in an elevator. When the footage was released, the internet blew up. Her actions were theorized to be part of an online horror ritual, a supernatural experience, a substance overdose, and much more. Elisa was finally found in the water tank on the hotel's roof, which only led to more wild speculations. Her passing was officially deemed an accident by LAPD, which some have had a hard time accepting. One of the most logical and likely theories is that Elisa was suffering from mental illness and behaved in such a way due to a manic episode. These 5 cases resemble Elisa's because they happened under very mysterious circumstances, disturbing circumstances, or other situations that suggest manic episodes. Number 5. Leah Roberts was a 23-year-old when she vanished in March of 2000. Just as she began her college career in North Carolina State University, her father fell ill from lung disease and put the family in a tough situation. Just a few years later, when Leah was 20, her mother passed away due to heart disease. When Leah was on the cusp of graduating college in 1999, her father passed away as well. These losses impacted Leah greatly, and she dropped out of college permanently. She then went into a big change that at first seemed positive. She made new friends, picked up new hobbies, and started living life on her own terms. On March 9th, 2000, Leah spoke to her sister Cara over the phone. Their conversation covered future plans, and Leah heavily implied that the pair would see each other in the near future. Leah made plans with her roommate, Nicole, to babysit for a friend the next day. Later that evening, Nicole returned home to find that Leah was gone. This wasn't any cause for immediate worry, because Leah often went out without saying a word and would frequently stay gone for a decent period of time. However, it wasn't in her character to make solid plans with Nicole and let them fall without at least calling. Therefore, Nicole was shocked when Leah didn't show up for the babysitting gig the next day. On top of this, Leah's family and friends called her house in a frenzy, having not heard from her. On March 13th, she was reported missing to police. Nicole and Cara searched Leah's room. They discovered that her clothes were missing along with her cat. They also found a note that vaguely told them not to worry next to a wad of cash to cover her share of the household expenses for at least a month, once again implying that she had every intent of eventually returning. A seemingly insignificant detail that should be mentioned is that the note featured a sketch of the Cheshire Cat's trademark smile. An investigation pulled up financial records stating that Leah had withdrawn several $1,000s on March 9th before she vanished. She also used her debit card to purchase a hotel room in Memphis, Tennessee. These were the last known transactions using the account. On March 18th, Leah's Jeep was found in an isolated forest area in Washington. Investigators determined the Jeep sped down a slope at about 40 miles per hour and had rolled over several times. However, there were no signs of a human being inside the vehicle at the time of the wreck. The common theory is that the wreck had been staged. Clothing from inside the Jeep was thrown along the roadside above where the Jeep had landed. Some items had been tied to trees, and it seemed as though the inside of the Jeep had been used as shelter after the incident. Leah's personal items, such as her ID, a cat carrier, some cat food, and $2,500 in cash, were found thrown randomly about the wooded area. It was clear that there was no struggle or robbery, so the logical assumption is that Leah did everything on her own. A witness report was later called in by an anonymous man. He stated that his wife had seen Leah at a gas station near Seattle. She had apparently been behaving strangely and clearly exhibited signs of confusion. The man ended the call before giving any further details, and the tip line went dead. Leah has still not been found, and the mysterious circumstances of her disappearance are the source of much debate. When you consider the sight of her Jeep, and if the witness sighting was true, it's very likely that Leah set out on a manic-fueled journey and either got herself into trouble or somehow harmed herself. Sadly, the truth is still unknown. Number 4. Vanessa Richardson, who had a bachelor degree in psychology, was working at a popular nightclub in late 2009 when she vanished. She'd never shown any signs of mental illness or substance abuse, Yet on September 17, 2009, police were called to a diner due to her bizarre behavior. When the 24-year-old beauty arrived at Jeffrey's restaurant in Malibu, she parked her car and waited for a valet. The attendant took a while, attending to another matter, and when he returned to service her, he found that she had jumped into his car, which was parked near the front with the door open. When questioned by the attendant, Mitris informed him that everything was subliminal, as she put it, and then proceeded to rant about avenging Michael Jackson. She also asked the valet attendant if a woman named Vanessa was inside the restaurant. The valet explained that he wasn't sure and asked who Vanessa was. Mitris couldn't provide an answer but told him to look out for a woman with a lot of tattoos. Although she obviously wasn't making any sense, her body language didn't seem to suggest that she was under the influence or that she had any intention of bringing harm. Once inside the establishment, she ordered a steak and an expensive cocktail. She rambled to her server and even took it upon herself to join a table of 7 other customers. She talked to them about astrology, science, the government, and much more. She was difficult to understand and made the group uncomfortable, but she still wasn't considered to be a threat and eventually returned to her own table. At one point, she announced to the staff that she was about to embark on a journey to Hawaii, promising to call them when she arrived. After she finished her meal, she tried to skip out on the check and insisted that the group she ate with had promised to cover her tab. As you'd expect, that was untrue, and eventually the police had to be called. Mitris, still rambling about nonsense, successfully passed a field sobriety test. She was still arrested for her inability to pay the $89 bill she had racked up, though. Officers contacted her mother and informed her of the arrest, mentioning that her car had been locked up with all her other belongings and towed to an impound lot. Her mother was concerned for her mental health after hearing of the strange behavior and begged LAPD to not release her until a ride was ready. Officials promised her mother that they would uphold her request, but soon broke that promise by releasing Mitris after midnight that night. She was set out into the city without any of her belongings, her car, or even money for a bus ride. When her mother heard the news, she responded with reasonable anger. Steve Whitmore, a spokesperson for the LAPD, said that Mitris exhibited no signs of mental illness or intoxication, that she was fine and she was her own adult. It was later reported at around 6:30 a.m. the following morning by a KTLA news anchor, Bill Smith, that he had spotted Mitris laying in his backyard. When he asked her why she was there, she simply replied saying that she was resting. A massive search followed 4 months after the last sighting of Mitris, which is considered to be one of the largest ones in the area's history. It included 300 trained searchers, 100 volunteer citizens, air coverage, ground coverage, and close looks into nearby creeks, trails, and ridges. On August 9, 2010, the young woman's remains were found in a creek bed just a few blocks from a ranch that was known for producing adult entertainment. Witnesses later reported hearing screams from the ranch, but investigators brushed it off as a coincidence. Additionally, they removed the remains against the orders of the coroner, who explained that they would be able to collect more information if the site was untouched. LAPD deemed Mitris's passing as an accident, despite very little information suggesting so. Her parents later received a lump sum in a lawsuit against the state due to her early release. They insisted that she suffered from bipolar disorder and was experiencing an episode. Her girlfriend, however, insisted that she had no mental illnesses. It was also proven that there were no substances found in her system, so the cause of her odd behavior and ultimate passing are still a mystery. Number 3. On April 26, 2000, a 25-year-old woman named Star Michelle Palumbo was found in a restricted area of a Tahoe International Airport. The responding airport officer had been called to the scene by witnesses that described Star's behavior as disoriented. He found her hiding behind a large truck in the area, and upon his approach, she claimed that she was looking for her sister. He didn't believe her story, which obviously later revealed to be untrue, and apprehended her in a calm manner. In his report, he stated that he believed she had no criminal intent and was not a danger to anyone. He dropped her off at a Reno Hilton hotel and casino. Although she went inside, she never checked in and vanished from the location. The puzzling story of Star Palumbo didn't begin when she disappeared. Instead, it began a few months prior. She moved to Tucson, Arizona to live with her grandmother in Reno, and things began to fall apart. She developed a substance abuse habit that ran her bank account dry. Eventually, her purchases greatly outweighed her income, and she took to doing odd jobs for money. Investigators have reason to believe that she was selling herself in Reno to support her habit. While living in Reno, Star stuck to a strict routine of calling her mother every single day. Her mother later told police that she was always in a good mood during their conversations, but on the day that she went missing, that wasn't the case. On that day, Star told her mom that she was worried about someone who'd been following her and planned to harm her. She insisted that her phone had been bugged and shared her plan to return home to Tucson to evade the hunt. The day after she went missing, Star's vehicle was found at the airport because it was parked illegally. The items found inside the vehicle were concerning to say the least and clearly came from someone in an unstable mental state. Her purse, ID, cell phone, and $600 were all found abandoned. Additionally, there were photocopies of emails that she had apparently sent to the White House, in which she voiced her concern that the government wanted to take her life. 2 how-to books informing how to change one's identity were also found inside the car, next to an eerie drawing of a woman being restrained. Search efforts carried on for several months. In fact, 8 months after her initial disappearance, a casino worker reported that Star had made a stop at the front desk. She was terrified and said that she was being chased by a pimp. Sadly, she fled the scene with an unknown woman before police were contacted. Theories speculate that Star is either in a substance abuse psychosis and doesn't understand who or where she is, or that she's being held against her will by this pimp or trafficker. Regardless, her family believes that she's still alive to this day, as requested any information about her be reported immediately. Number 2. Surveillance camera footage and a series of truly weird 911 calls come together to make the case of Kalin louder, even more baffling. The 30-year-old woman had never shown any signs of mental illness, despite some family issues that could easily trigger symptoms. Her father mentioned that she was going through employment issues and hadn't had a stable job for about a year before she went missing. He claimed that this caused her to feel a bit depressed, but that she wasn't affected by the issues enough to seek help or see herself as a danger. Yet, the events that unfolded before she vanished strongly suggested that she was in an altered mental state. It was around 9 p.m. on September 26, 2014, when Kalin called 911 and reported that a fight had broken out in her condo's lounge and lobby. She informed the dispatcher that firearms were present and that she feared for her life. Officers arrived and couldn't locate Kalin. All they found at the clubhouse was a wedding reception. Many attendees were questioned, and they all agreed that there hadn't been a fight or even a disagreement. Police went on their way, but they received another call from Kalin, in which she hung up just as it was answered. Her call was returned, and it still was unclear exactly what she wanted or needed. However, it was obvious in the audio recordings that she was still confused and lost. She mumbled incoherently and made statements that implied she didn't know her address. Her roommate apparently told her that she was delusional and paranoid, which 911 dispatch operators overheard. At 8 a.m. the next morning, she made another call, screaming about an intruder in her apartment. Her roommate is once again overheard reassuring her that there's no one there, and the bolt on the door was locked. Officers arrived and everything seemed to have calmed down by that point. On 2 occasions later that same day, surveillance footage shows Kalin walking barefoot in her parking lot near an area that led to a creek. In the footage, she's seen behaving manically as she talks to either an imaginary person or her dog. One part of the clip shows her running away from the wooded area, in a casual way, to imply that she isn't being chased. This footage was the last time that Kalin was seen alive. She was reported missing and was found almost 10 weeks later in the Jordan River. The cause of her passing was not identified, but there were no substances in her system. Her behavior and fateful end inspired endless theories and suspicions, yet the truth may never be revealed. Number 1. ChristyKrebs was a 23-year-old woman working at a local restaurant in Fort Bragg, California, when she went missing on August 10, 1993. When she started her job in 1990, she fell for a married coworker. Her innocent crush quickly developed into an unhealthy obsession, and those close to her reported that she would drive around town aimlessly and daydream about the two being a couple. Christy was cruising around the Redwood area on the night of April 30th, 1990, when her car got stuck in the mud. She fought to get the car out, but failed, and as a result, the car went up in flames. Christy was able to escape, but what followed was described as a severe mental breakdown that ended with her being found walking along train tracks the following morning. She was confused, unstable, and exhausted from the rough night she had endured. She went to a psychiatric hospital which held her for 6 months. They agreed that she had suffered a traumatic breakdown and treated her with therapy and medication. She was later released and returned to her life with a cutback on her hours at work. For 3 years, she lived her life just like anyone else, and it seemed that the peak of her mental troubles were over. She decided that she was well enough to devote more of her time to work again and started working full-time at 2 different locations. On August 9th, 1993, Christy left work and traveled to a beach where a ranger told her that she had to leave. This is the last person that saw her before she vanished. She apparently went south and wound up in yet another car accident in almost the same location. This time, she tore up all of her identifying materials and vanished into the woods. Just shy of a year later, a highway patrol officer traveling off the clock found a female hitchhiker seeking a ride along the road. The woman showed clear signs of mental illness and had scars on her wrist and shared stories that, when later reported to her family, almost confirmed that she was Christy. When the officer saw a photo of Christy after the ride, he insisted that she was the hitchhiker. However, she couldn't be tracked down again and is still missing to this day. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you in the next video.